Hey everyone, welcome back to Ham Radio Insights. I'm Stuart, Victor Echo 9, Charlie Foxtrot, and we have a very, very special guest today. Now, you know what? I looked this up before we get started, and I can't remember your call sign now. I know it's a two call. Violetta, welcome to the show today. Tell us a little about yourself, and because this is my first time getting to talk to you ever, other than being
Yeah.
on the air, of course.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you having me on today. My call is Kilo November 2 Papa. It is a vanity call. I'm not actually from Two-Land. I live in Colorado. Um, I am yeah, I'm 21, extra class, have done a lot of contesting mostly, now getting into the DXpedition side of things. So really excited to be on the show today.
Yeah, it's really exciting to have you on the show today because I talked to Greg, W6IZT, and Glenn, who was on the CY0S, and they gave me the perspective of the youth coming into expeditions. Now I actually got a youth in the flesh here talking to me about it. So I'm gonna start off with that question. From a youth perspective, tell me about the expeditions and everything well, how did you get involved with it first? And just overall, your perspective or feelings on doing the expedition with a bunch of old guys like us.
Yeah, I think it's definitely not something that happens overnight. A lot of other young people ask me like, how do you get involved? How do you like, um, get involved with DXpeditions, these types of things. And it's been like a multi-year process. I first got licensed in 2014, and my first like quote unquote DXpedition experience was through the Dave Coulter Memorial Youth DX Adventure Program. That's an organization. They raise funds to send 3 or 4 kids to like a DX location every year. Kind of give the young people a chance to be on the other end of the pileups. And it's always like a pre-existing station. Usually they do PJ2T down in Curacao. They've gone to Costa Rica. I know they've done the PJ6Y before, but it's a really great program. Kind of, you get the feel of traveling to another location to operate. So that was really where my love for DXpedition started. That was back in 2018. So
Yeah,
this started a long time ago.
very, very fascinating because I've been doing ham radio for, well, I hate to admit it, a lot longer than you've been alive, And I was telling you before we got recorded that I had an opportunity to go down somewhere in the Caribbean a couple years ago, and I regretfully said no because like something was going on in my life and I couldn't get away or something like that. I can't remember exactly what was going on. I think we were moving or something. And now I regret it because I wish I would have gone because that opened. You're very fortunate to have that door open for you at such a young age because now ham radio is not going. It's going to be around forever. In one capacity. There may change a little bit over. As technology improves. But you got your whole life ahead of you to experience all these great adventures like the one coming up to South Georgia Island, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But you were recently in Honduras this spring, I do believe. So you had some good opportunities. Tell me a little bit about Honduras. I remember working you guys on the air prior to the contest and during the contest, but tell me a little bit about the background on that one there.
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting story actually. I am in like a DX club group that's like in the larger Colorado area, and I got an email through the reflector of a couple guys saying, "Hey, like we've had no luck trying to join DXpedition, so we want to start our own and kind of start planning and doing it that way." And so they were looking for other people who are interested. So I was like, "Heck yeah!" And so it was just 3 of us, me and 2 other local guys, kind of just going through the whole process from start to finish by ourselves. Didn't really realize how much time, effort, planning goes into an operation like that. So we chose Roatan because it's a great location somewhere in the Caribbean, so it's close, close to the U.S. Um, and applied for a local call sign, started the whole process. We were looking at like locations and all the equipment and everything like that. And we kind of sat down with a very experienced DXpedition planner. And he said, "Hey guys, for your first time, especially because the other 2 guys, they've never operated outside the US before. He said, for the first time, go to a pre-existing station, get that experience of traveling, operating outside the US before you start trying to bring all your own gear and working with, customs and carnets and all that." So we looked at renting the HQ9X station, which is it's like available on Airbnb and a couple sites like that. Talked to the owner. We wanted to be down there during the WPX contest. Fun fact, the other 2 fellows I went with have never operated a contest before, so that was interesting. So a lot of firsts. Yeah, we got down there, the station, everything is disconnected. So we, hooked everything up, got it running, got on the air that evening. And yeah, just had a lot of fun with it. I've done a lot of contesting on like multi-operation, like multi-two, multi-multi. And I've always felt like I'm like have the least experience of everyone on the team. So now being the only one who's done a contest ever before was a completely different experience. I think I learned a lot just from that aspect. But we had a lot of fun. We were yeah, on the air leading up to the contest and then the contest weekend as well. So
And you guys had a great signal coming up to New Brunswick here. Like no problem hopping you guys from that state. And I know there's lots of stations like that one on Rotan. And I've been to Rotan. It's you're right. It's an easy place to get into. I think I was on a cruise that went through there one time. And there's other ones. There's one in French Guiana, I think. And another one you can rent in Cyprus. There's one. So that's a great place to get started for contesting. And again, for you being close to, probably what a 3 hour flight from Colorado to Honduras is not that far. So, good one to get your feet wet. But you got a big one coming up next year. You're going to South Georgia with a VP0 SG team, and I was looking at that. That's quite an extensive. Well, I'll put it, it's a fine, well experienced group of ham radio operators going down there. So you're going to be amongst some. I would call it some pretty much DX royalty going down there.
yeah, absolutely. My first like true DXpedition was last year to the North Cooks Echo 51. And that's like in the South Pacific and Island. We're there, in the middle of their summer. And this is gonna be to, basically a subantarctic island and at the end of their summer. So it's gonna be a completely different experience. But we have some really great team leaders. And when you're going to a place like that, having your team leaders come from Norway is a pretty good thing. I feel pretty confident about that.
And is
Um,
that correct me if I'm wrong? Is that a Norwegian overseas territory? I can't
I
remember
believe it
now.
is. Yeah. So the group that's leading it, it's a group called Amateur Radio DXpeditions, and it is a Norway yeah, organization from Norway. So there's going to be 16 operators. We'll be on the island for 2 weeks is the plan. There's me and one other fellow, Steve Whiskey Zero Zulu Bravo. He's the other American operator, and the rest are from various European countries. We have a pretty great team, yeah. And there's also going to be not only there's another young lady, but we have 3 youth in total. So it's
Yeah,
awesome
and
to
it's
be
really
represented that way.
it's really awesome to see the youth getting involved in these. Like I said earlier, I was talking with Ken, who another Norwegian who led up the 3Y0K the expedition to where was that now? I lost my train of thought. Saint not Saint
Bouvet.
Peter, not Saint Peter Island. That's one next year.
Yeah.
Beauvais Island.
Yeah.
And he said that was quite an undertaking to go down there. So you're going there for 2 weeks. Now, I should know this, but there's no civilization on that island, correct?
Correct. There is it's like a tourist stop, so a lot of these like the cruise ships that go down there, they'll stop there for a couple hours, but there's no establishments there on the island. I think part of the year they have like a research team, but it's a big like wildlife preservation. So yeah, it'll be interesting. We have the boat or the vessel that we're chartering, we have it for 28 days. And we leave from the Falkland Islands, return back to the Falklands. And it's about a 5 or 6 day journey from Falklands to South Georgia. So,
Yeah.
the 5 or 6 days there and back, plus the time on the island. So 28 days total. So we're
So
hoping for about 2 weeks of operating time.
it's like going on a nice cruise, basically, just on a smaller vessel. So
Yeah.
I know recently, I know there was a Bulgarian ham that was down in the South Shetlands, and I think South Georgia is part of the South Shetland island chain, I guess. And he did worldwide flora and fauna and parks on the air from down there. So hopefully we may get another parks on the air credit from you guys when you're down there. For us people that like to chase those every once in a while too. And
Yeah.
I like to work though. I like to work DXpeditions that do those programs for the credits because I'm a big country hunter. I like to work new DXCC, so
Yeah.
that makes it even better. So tell me a little about the logistics of going down there because as all the other interviews I've done, they always said 95% of the DXpedition is done in the planning phase. So where are you guys at now, being a year out? Are you pretty much ready to go, or what else do you guys have to do?
Yeah, so the big kind of like the first in-person team meeting is going to happen in June in Norway. It's a long weekend, so a Thursday to a Sunday. We're going to be testing all of the equipment. Every single piece of equipment that's going in that container is going to be tested. And then we're, going to start packing all that up. So that's going to happen here in June, so next month. And that'll be a great opportunity just to, meet in person everyone else on the team before we're stuck with each other for 5 weeks straight. Um, but yeah, that'll be good. And then logistic wise for getting there, rather than having everyone like meet separately in the Falkland Islands, we're all meeting in London and we're taking a military flight from London to the Falkland Islands. And we're scheduled to arrive in the Falklands 2 days before the vessel leaves, just to make sure everyone's there on time and we don't have any canceled flights, delays, anything like that.
It'd probably
So
be
yeah, we'll be
easier to
there.
have you guys all go to London anyways and take that and charter flight down there because flying to the Falklands, the best of my knowledge, is not the easiest place to get to from a lot of places around the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, yeah, I think this is definitely the best way to do it. So yeah, we'll get there 2 days early, and then, like I said, about 5 or 6 days on the ship, to get to South Georgia.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that next this time around this time next year, the time we're recording. Well, actually, no, 10 months. It's 10 months from now. It's in March of
Yep.
2027, so we're under a year to go. So what's your role going to be? Are you going to do voice, CW, digital, or touch all? Do you do all of them?
I am mostly a sideband operator. That's really where, I mean, that's where I have the most fun. Sideband pileups yeah, they're awesome. I'm sure everyone's gonna have to take their turn doing some kind of digital modes. I don't think it's anyone's like favorite, so we're all just gonna have to share that. I am still learning CW. I'm not anywhere near like proficiency wise, prepared for pileups like we'll be getting from South Georgia. Um, but there are some really good CW operators on the team. We haven't really sat down and done like schedule wise figuring out what that's gonna look like. And like as compared to a trip like Bouvet where they're um, taking a helicopter onto the island and then they're there until they have to leave. We actually have we can take like landing craft from the ship on the shore as long as, the conditions are good. So we're planning to eat, sleep, do everything on the ship, and then just operate on the island. So kind of do shifts back and forth. So we'll have it a little bit better than they did for sure.
Yeah, yeah, sleeping in a nice warm cabin versus in a tent on a South Pacific or not South Atlantic island. Not my idea of a getaway. Although, you're probably a little bit more like me that way. Going somewhere, I'd rather go there than go somewhere else where it's all touristy. Because you're gonna,
Yeah.
you're young, you're in your 20s. You got your whole life to tell that story of that that trip there. Because not a lot of people, let alone a lot of people your age, a lot of people my age have never experienced a place like that.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing opportunity. I'm very very blessed to have something like this. And one kind of unique thing about South Georgia, if you know the story of Ernest Shackleton, that's where that story took place. So he's actually buried there on the island, which is why it's kind of a big tourist stop. A lot of people stop there just for that. So,
Yeah, interesting. Very
um,
interesting. So why South Georgia? Like why that place? So, is it sought after for DXEC or just, the guys just got together and threw a dart at the map and said, that's where we're going.
No, I think currently right now, I believe it's number 24 most wanted, 23 or 24, something like that. So it is higher up on the list. And they've been planning this for, I want to say like a year or two. I came into the game pretty late. I just got a call in December of 2025 when I got that call asking if this is something I'd be interested in doing. And so I was a little bit later to the game. They had most of the team already established. And the other North American, Steve, he's going to be the team doctor. So he's a physician, so we'll have him along. That'll be awesome.
And that's one of the things that Greg W6IZT mentioned in my interview with him was you always have to have a plus one. So you have to have your operating skills plus something else. I know by reading your profile, you're not just a ham radio operator, you're a commercial pilot as well. So is that your plus one for this expedition?
Unfortunately, we're not going to be like chartering a flight to the island. Um, but yeah, I definitely, yeah, I'm not like a lot of people there. They're very proficient in CW, sideband and digital, which I'm still working on my CW skills. So, unfortunately, I won't be able to bring that. But I think and like I don't know if they mentioned this on the Bouvet trip when they brought Max along. I was talking to some of the operators and they said, yeah, we brought Max along to, just thinking, hey, another youth, it looks good for the team. And they said he did, so much for the team that they never even expected. Like he was doing all the IT stuff, like the computer stuff. He was such a help, and they didn't really expect that. And so I think people, when they see like youth being included on these DXpeditions, they tend to think, oh, like the team is just checking a box of like doing our job to include youth. But I think we have a lot of skills that we can bring to the team as well.
And they mentioned at my interview with W6ICT that IT is a very sought after skill on expeditions because all the logging software and all that stuff is all networked together. You may have something like a Starlink or something like that that you have to configure. I'm lucky. I had a 25, 30-year career in IT. I was telling you, I used to work for a company in Colorado Springs. If you drive by that area, you'll probably see their sign. I retired this year, so Blake, the guy who runs it, is still a very good friend of mine. Yeah, Union Boulevard, Colorado support, ColoradoComputerSupport.com. I think we rechanged our name to CCSIT Pros near the end there, just because we didn't want to be labeled as a computer support company anymore. But technology is so important in today's ham radio world. Now, you not only do you have networking and all these logging satellites. Now we're looking at using AI tools for propagation forecasting. So that's critical, and I love to hear more of your thoughts on just the role that technology is going to play, especially with the upcoming expedition you're going on.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot more tools available now than there was even like 5 years ago, which is great. Um, I know a lot of people have mixed opinions about like the digital modes and things like that. I went to the first DXpedition last year, to the North Cooks, and I knew that, everyone has to take their turn doing FT8. And I kind of knew what it was, but I wasn't, like I didn't really know. I wasn't like, didn't have a lot of time, using it. I wasn't really looking forward to it, to be honest, but I gotta say, after running an 8 hour sideband pileup, FT8's pretty nice.
Well, and
Um,
FT8, FT8 for all the naysayers that are out there. I mean, a lot of expeditions are running it now because you can run multi-channels, and guys like me who are, if you're in the North Cook, FT8 may be one of the only ways that can work you because of the distance and just the way Asia for me, it's obtainable. Sometimes it can be very obtainable, but places like China and Southeast Asia are not as easy as me working Europe, for example. So those digital modes do have a place in expeditions today.
Yeah, especially people who have more modest stations, who don't have, the opportunities to have, all these crazy towers and things like that. Propagation wise, it does help. A lot of people get in the log that wouldn't be able to otherwise. So,
Or you're like me today after this week's terrible windstorm. We had 80 km/h winds here, and my 20-meter element on my beam is broken, and I'm bringing the antenna down tomorrow to repair it. So
oh
you
no.
know, that happens, right? So I'm limping along with an NFED half wave today, so this
Yeah.
week until I get it fixed. But I guess that's one of the things I like about the digital modes. It's inclusive for those guys who are people, ham radio operators that are, you know, maybe just a person with a wire and 100 watts. They do have a chance to play in the bigger picture of working expeditions now.
Yep. Yeah.
And so tell me, in a lot of the conversation I had with Glenn and Mark and Greg, they all also talk about contesting skills. Now you come from the contesting world, as well. You've done a few contests now in your youth age as a ham radio operator. How important was your contest familiarity to getting you prepped to do just the pileups on an expedition? Because I can imagine what the pilots are like because I did WWA this January and it was crazy. And a buddy of mine said that's as close as you're going to get to running an expedition pileup. So, I mean, obviously, going to Japan 6-2 Kilo and Papa Japan 6 Yankee, those other contest stations where you guys you're probably going 12, 13 hours a day straight, right?
It really depends what type of operation, but yeah, and places like from PJ2T, I was there for CQ Worldwide sideband last year, so in October. And the guy operating on 15, he had like a 300 QSO first hour. And that's really what prepares you for, DXpeditions like this. Because during a contest, it's 48 hours or, 24. and it progressively gets slower, as you go through, right? You work out your stations and then there's less and less people to work. But I think really it's those first hours where it's super high. It's those first few hours like really make or break the contest for you. And just how you can handle that kind of like stress and adrenaline that really transfers to the kind of pileups that you'll see in DXpeditions.
I'd love to get the professional's opinion on this, and I'm going to turn to you as the professional because you have more experience than I do. You're working split. So let's say you're up 5 to 10. I think Bouvet, no, CY0F, one of the two. I called them up 27, and they got them. They were taking over the whole band basically.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, what tricks do you have when you have? Because I mean, I've worked split before too, but not to the level that you guys have. Um, and how do you pull stations out when you got nobody? The other stations aren't hearing the other stations calling, right? You're on your own frequency, so people can hear you, except for the people that are calling on your calling frequency. You know, what tricks do you have to manage the pile up on it when you're working split? Because I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I like split because especially when you have that size of a pile up, it definitely like spreads it out a little bit, so it's not everybody all on top of each other. It's a lot easier to pick out call signs or at least part of call signs. And a question I get a lot is like how do I get in a log? How do I break through a pile up? And I think that's like really just dependent on who's operating the pile up, right? Because everybody has a different technique. They run pileups differently. And so I just say listen to the operator. If you notice that he's coming back with prefixes, then maybe give your prefix twice instead of your full call sign. Um, if he's calling for, a certain part of the world and you're not in that part of the world, don't call because you're not going to get in the log. It's just going to make them angry. I have that a lot. Just listen to how they're running it and yeah, kind of just tailor how you're calling to that.
And if you're running like a spread, let's say up 5 to 15, for example, me personally, I try to stay off the 5, 10, and 15. I go to the 7 and the 3 and just
Yeah.
get off those those digits of five, right? And pick something out of the middle of your areas that you're looking for because I find I have better success getting through if you're on you're looking for up 5 to 10 and I call up 7
Yeah.
because you're spinning the dial
That's
you're spinning the dial on your end trying to find that one station, right?
yeah. So when I say, a 5 to 10, I'm usually not sitting right on five or right on 10. You're usually spinning somewhere in between. So that's a good
Yeah,
technique.
between 6 to 9, basically, right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
about tone? Because I hear a lot of the DXers out there say, hey, you know what? People that have really really bassy signal like modulation, it's very hard. They have less chance getting through if somebody has more highs in their signal. Is that something you listen for, like highs and lows in their signal?
Definitely. Anything that just sounds a little different than normal is going to catch your ear, right? So if you can make your signal just like tweak it just a little bit, it's definitely going to catch their attention versus just, sounding exactly like everybody else. And my dad used to do that a lot to break through the pileups. He would use like a super high pitched voice so he sounded like a little girl. And then when they asked his age, he'd be like, I'm 58. Like it's like whatever it takes to get through.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever it takes,
He
right?
he would get really annoyed because we'd be sitting there calling and calling and calling, and then he'd put one of us girls on, and it's like first call.
Well,
So
that sometimes works. The higher pitched sound, that works. Because I know a lot of hams are looking for YLs, they're looking for youth. That gets their attention versus just a bunch of old geezer guys like me, right? So that's a good trick, to use. My friend Barry N4WFU always says, if you're going to DXing, tweak your modulation so you have more highs and less lows. Because one of the things I do a lot of portable operations, and when I'm out do at a portable location here in New Brunswick, and it's unbelievable how many people have bad sounding stations. It's unbelievable how many bad stations are out there.
yeah, no, I've definitely heard that a lot in contests and just operating otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah. What about tricks for the contest? Because um, you know, contesting is much like DXing and much like what I do for portable sometimes. What uh what tricks can you share about working like a Honduras or Carousel or Bonaire? These sought after stations that are the same idea. Just make sure because in contests you can't do split, right? So you're on the same frequency. And what are you listening for in a contest for? Are you listening for unique multipliers or something else?
A lot of it's unique multipliers, right? Like the first couple hours, obviously, you're just working everybody that you possibly can. But as it goes on, unique multipliers is definitely what we really listen for. If you're trying to, get through the pileup to work, that big contest station, I would say, kind of like a DXpedition when they're there, especially something like Bouvet, right? The first couple days are going to be absolutely insane, chaotic, crazy. And so it's like, okay, maybe if I wait until a week into it, then I'll have a better chance of getting through the pileup. Kind of the same thing for a contest. Look at propagation and it's like, okay, if this window is going to be open for a while, if you can't get through in the first hour, then that's fine. They have a lot of big pileups the first couple hours. So maybe just wait until, a little bit later in the contest because those big stations are going to be on all 24 or 48 hours.
And you mentioned you're in Honduras for WPX, and now I remember. Now I remember. It wasn't that long ago, but I remember everything that happened now. So when WPX comes up, I always and so in Canada here, unlike in the US, when the US want to get a special event call, you're stuck with a one by one, right? There's not much you can do there. In Canada, we're very fortunate that we can pick whatever we want, basically. If an anniversary of something is on an increment of 25, so 25, 50, 75, 100, and so on, there are special prefixes available. So this year I operated Charlie Golf 9 Tango for what was it? Alexander Graham Bell's 175th anniversary of the telephone internet. And then right after that, I did VX9P, which is a little bit more near dear to my heart because it was the 75th anniversary of the Battle of Kapyong. And the infantry battalion that I served alongside with when I was in the military was the 2nd Battalion of PPCLI, which did the fighting at that battle. So that a little bit more. So I had VX9P that was a bit more close to home, something I wanted to do. But CG9T was just I need an anniversary that has I can get a unique prefix for because like a WPX contest, that's a unique prefix. That's something you don't hear every day. And another thing I noticed with contests too, as soon as I come on with a Victor Echo 9, I seem to bust through the pileups most of the time because it is a it's I won't say it's a rare multiplier, but there's not a lot of contesters in VE9. There's a
Yeah.
few of us. I think there's a handful, six to 12, you know,
Yeah.
of us, but not a lot. So that uniqueness is something as well. So if you're one of the things I like about the US is the vanity call. So if you're going after a vanity call, maybe get something with a little bit more unique prefix.
Yep.
So, one of the things I forgot to mention, I usually ask this at the beginning of the interview. Um, you mentioned your father obviously was a ham. So is that how you
Yep.
got into ham radio? Is through just with your dad and what you're watching him?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting story. So there's 7 kids in my family. I've all girls except for one. I only have one brother. And my dad basically made it a competition when we were younger to see like who could get their license first, who could upgrade first. And so when I was like studying for like my license and everything, when I finally got my license, it wasn't out of a love for ham radio, it was because I really didn't like my siblings.
Fair
But I mean,
enough.
his method worked. All 7 kids. I mean, even my mom. So all 9 people in my family are licensed at various levels. So start them young, whatever it takes. But I was very fortunate. A lot of my schooling years we were homeschooled, and so that was really integrated into like our schooling program. So studying for the exams. So we got credit for school from it, which was nice. Um,
Well, and family, family activity, right? That's makes that brings you all together, right? I couldn't imagine as a father of 2 boys. I couldn't imagine having how many 6 girls in your family?
yeah, 6 girls, one
I
boy.
I
He
was
has a lot of moms.
my wife that I married 11 years ago. She had 2 daughters, and I got to know them during their teenage years. And I went, it was so much easier raising boys.
Yeah.
It was because
My dad had 6 teenage girls at one time.
oh, I couldn't imagine that. So that's great. That's a family event, and fantastic for you to do that. So you're also a pilot. So tell me, does that play together with ham radio? Do you ever do any aeronautical mobile when you're up in the air?
I have done a couple of them, and they've all been just like taking my handheld doing 2 meter simplex. I unfortunately don't own my own airplane. I rent from like a local flight club, and so it's I can't really install anything permanent on the aircraft. If I had my own, there would definitely be a whole HF setup in there. Maybe someday. But
Maybe you can
I
launch a
definitely
website to help you raise money to buy your own plane.
yeah. Everything in aviation is expensive. If it has anything aviation attached, it's crazy. But I moved out here to Colorado Springs about 2.5 years ago to start flight training, and now work as a flight instructor here, with my own students. So it's been a really cool journey. And I'm always fascinated by how much aviation and ham radio overlap. Like a lot of the people I meet through aviation know about ham radio, and a lot of the people I meet through ham radio are also in aviation. So that's really cool.
Well, voice procedure is similar in ways, and and I can tell you about aviation. I know because my son, my oldest son, is a airframe mechanic with WestJet out of Edmonton. So he's working on. I think he moved. He started with the 737s. Now he's on I think they got Dreamliners. So he works on those. So
Oh,
he's
cool.
he's done well in the 10 years that he's been working with WestJet too. So it's that's it's I can he told me when I was paying for his schooling, I know what it was like. You know, everything in aviation is expensive, and so that's cool. I mean, um, yeah, I know a lot of the smaller planes don't have the room to put HF radio in because of the size of the planes, right?
Yeah, they're pretty small.
Yeah. Now, I read on your profile that your dream is to become a commercial pilot, though. So what, how are you coming along to become a commercial pilot and, work for a major airline one day?
Yeah. I mean, technically I have my commercial license, but kind of the process is it's a lot of building hours. So you have to have 1,500 hours. That's kind of like the magic number before people will start hiring you for those kinds of positions. Rather than going into the airlines, I want to do like the corporate side, so flying business jets, something like net jets. And so kind of the same thing. You also have to have 1,500 hours. So a way most pilots build those hours is by being a flight instructor, because now the student's paying for the aircraft and they're paying, for our time. And we get to log it. So you're basically getting paid to fly, which is a big change from, paying the 200 plus an hour for flight training.
Yeah.
And so being an instructor, that's how people usually build that 1,500 hours. And I have to be 23 before I get my ATP rating, which will allow me to then fly for like scheduled airlines, scheduled charter, things like that. So
And I'm not going to say that I know anything about private to commercial pilots. I don't know anything about other than what I watch from the guys doing it on YouTube, and they have the pretty good life. Some of them
yeah.
anyway.
Yep.
So, hey, thanks for coming on the program today. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to talk to us. My last question I always ask everybody, and I'd love to get your perspective on it since you're one of the youth of ham radio. Where do you see ham radio going, or what would you like to see ham radio become? As you got 40 or 50 years ahead of you of doing ham radio. Where do you see it going?
That's a really good question. Dang, that is a really good question. I have to think about that for a minute. I mean, personally, what I really enjoy about it is the opportunities to travel, the opportunities to, activate these rare locations. But honestly, the best thing that ham radio has ever given me is all the friendships. And so just really seeing a lot more of, like people going to in-person things like Hamvention, local ham fest, just kind of that community aspect, that it brings is really awesome. I think in the future there's going to be, like we talked about earlier, a lot more integration of like AI, a lot more like digital modes, things like that. I'm not against that, but I also hope that, the CW and sideband portions of it don't ever die out, because that's what I really enjoy.
Well, one thing you realize in ham radio that we hold on to the vintage technologies longer than anyone else does. Because I always make a joke with all my CW buddies, because I did CW in the military. And I remember my instructor standing behind me, tapping on my shoulder, saying, I think I gotta learn this. And ever since I did it in the military, I said, I don't want to do this anymore. But and the joke I have with all my CW buddies is this, 1850 called, they want their technology back. But
Yeah.
as a community, we love to hold on to these legacy technologies. So I don't want to see it go away just much as I don't want to see RTTY go away, and all that now. And it's up for the young people in the community to, I'll say, I don't want to use a cliche, but carry the torch, keep it going, because it's youth getting involved in understanding how CW works, and learning it is going to keep it alive, and that's great to see. Violetta, thanks again for doing this. I really appreciate it. Good luck with South Georgia. I know we didn't talk about much about it, but there's still a lot of there's still a lot of things getting planned and going forward for next March. So we look forward to hearing that on the air. Before I let you go, what's on the calendar for you for contest wise? What you got anything between now and South Georgia that we should be aware of?
Yeah, coming up. So for the CQ Worldwide Sideband this year, I'll be going down to the British Virgin Islands. So looking forward to that. Just a really small team, all youth operators. So that'll be really cool. Look out for us then. And then also in November, I'll be going to Tokelau, so Zulu Kilo 3. Also looking forward to that. Have more information about that on my QRZ page. So
Awesome. Go
thank
to
you
your
for having me
QRZ.
on today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Go to your QRZ page, check it out. I'll put a link in the pinned comment below. Thanks again for doing this. Best of luck, and I look forward to hearing your brilliant voice on the airways, especially during contests. Now I can say, "Hey, it's me." You'll recognize the call of E9CF and just give a little hi instead of just going, "You're 5'9" next," right?
All right, sounds good. Thanks
See you
again for
later.
having
Thanks again for
me
joining us. I'm Stuart Victor Echo 9 Charlie Foxtrot. We'll see you guys in next visit. Thanks to Violetta for joining us on Ham Radio Insights, and thanks for all of you for subscribing to the channel. It's the comments and the feedback I get that keep this going. Thanks, everyone. See you all later.